passage of Scripture, but I want us to look at a particular verse. I think that it is verse 6, where it speaks definitively about what the tongue can do. In verse 6, so also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest fire is set ablaze by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of a life, and set on fire by hell. The tongue is one of the smallest things in our body, and it is powerful, but it is also dangerous because it spews out fire, and fire, before it can cleanse, it has to destroy. You know, I don't know how many of you all have seen people in preparation to farm the next year. They will go out and burn a certain part of their field before they till it up, because they're burning the toxins out of the top part of the dirt. And then when they till and turn it over, that old dirt and decay becomes fertilizer to the new soil that is lying underneath. But our tongue, when it does that, it just destroys, because it just runs rampant. So why does our speech matter? One, it reveals what we believe. If you believe that Jesus is who he says he is, and you have accepted him in your heart, your language validates what you say. If you let people talk long enough, they will let you know who they are and what they believe. They'll tell you. Because when they talk about how much things cost and what things they have and what they've attained, it shows you the character of who they are. It shows you what they believe in. But when people talk about how they are helping people, or how they see people in need and their heart learns to help, it shows you that they have a compassionate heart for Jesus Christ. But also, too, in part B, it shows the level of our spiritual maturity. Because your language is indicative of how you talk. None of us speak now like we did when we were children. But because we have matured mentally, spiritually, and physically, how we talk has changed. When someone tells you no now, you don't throw a tantrum. Or you shouldn't throw a tantrum. You know how to speak to those who may speak harshly to you. You know how to give, if you are put on a stand and asked to answer questions, you know how to speak in such a way that it validates the character of who you are. But what happens is, when we don't mature spiritually, our language shows in the vulgarity, the gossip, how we undermine and do things to one another. It shows in our language, because if we don't mature, our language doesn't change. And there should be some growth in our life, because we are matured in Christ and we have grown, and now we have a greater understanding of who God is, and so it is expressed in how we talk. And you know the right setting to use language. We don't talk in church how we may talk amongst our friends. That's a sign of maturity. Because there's some things that you may say amongst your friends that you hope the Lord don't hear. But just to be, but in honesty, the maturity is shown in the level of conversation. You may have been at an age where your dominant conversation was about when Jordans are coming out and all this other stuff, but now your conversation is about your responsibilities and making sure your children have what they need, and planning for life beyond the moment. So your conversation, because you matured, has changed. That same thing should happen in our spiritual maturity. It's just some things that you ought to just stop saying. But that comes as a sign of maturity, and our speech is indicative of what we believe and our level of spiritual maturity. So our scripture teaches this about our words. Matthew 12:34. Jesus says, "For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." Our words reveal our hearts. Your heart is going to be revealed by what you say. So when you're happy, your heart shows the language is full of joy and peace and you're lifting up. But what about when you get angry? How does your heart affect your words then? Do those Sunday school words that you said you weren't going to say anymore come flying out? Are your responses full of venom and trying to belittle the person that you are angry with at the time? What about when things don't go your way and you always start complaining? I can deal with the angry person better than I can a complainer. Because an angry person, we can identify what made them angry, and we can work to fix that. But somebody that always complains has a lust and a thirst that will never be satisfied. No matter how much they get, they ain't never going to be satisfied. What about using profanity? What about gossip? When that comes out of the root that's in your heart. Because if somebody tells you something in confidence, it's dead wrong of you to go and tell somebody else what that person said. Because we all played that little game growing up, or the gossip game growing up. You start over here, and if you worked in any professional setting, they make you sit through this in one of those lovely professional developments that they say something to the first person, and you pass it on along, and it goes throughout the room. When the last person gets it, they have to repeat what they were told, and 9 times out of 10, by the time it gets to what they were told in the back, it doesn't match anything that was said in the front. Your heart shows all of that. And when it harbors those kinds of spirits, it comes out and is expressed in your language. And so we have to make sure that our words are revealing that Christ controls our heart, not our emotions and our feelings. Right? Then Ephesians 4:29, which we read, our language should build others up. Should build others up. We should edify them. That's what in the King James it has, edify or edifying. But it means that when we speak to them, we're building them up. Now, it does not mean that we don't correct them, but you correct them in love. You don't correct them to destroy them. hey, you didn't get this right. That was not the right way to do this. This is a better way to do it. You correct in love. But our natural tendency when we correct somebody is to do what? To lay the wood to them. Instead, we have to learn how to correct and edify. So it's not always you telling somebody how good they are. And some of the problems that we have with people in church is they've only been built up, they've never been corrected. So they have a very inflated sense of who they are in the church, but without correction of behavior, we're doing them an injustice. And I know that is a difficult part within the church because oftentimes we're concerned about people getting mad and taking their ball and going home, but you do them a greater service by correcting them than you by not saying anything to them. Come on, Pastor White. Yeah, she something gets fed. Just dropped something. So we have to make sure that we're building each other up. Even though we may be angry with them and upset at what they did, we still have to build them up with grace and temper our language in such a way that while we are correcting them and they may have frustrated us out of our minds, we still have to speak to them in such a way that love rules and covers what we say. Because none of us want to be berated and torn down and destroyed. So why would we do that to somebody else? But if you are in a position where you're getting corrected, get out your feelings. None of us are perfect. And the correction is for your good because the people who correct you love you. The people who let you keep doing your foolishness don't care about you at all. So you have to learn how to accept the correction that's coming your way. Next, in Colossians chapter 4, verse 6, again in the writing of Paul, let your speech be always with grace. Our speech should be gracious. Grace means that our speech should reflect the same undeserved kindness that God shows us. That's really important when we're dealing with somebody that we don't see eye to eye with. We have to learn to be gracious. Because for most of our lives, God has not seen eye to eye with us, but yet he extended grace. And it's amazing how people who have received the most grace are the least gracious. Only you know where you were when the Lord met you. Only you know for certain how God has expressed his grace to you. But from the depth of his grace, he's been gracious to us all, and our charge is to be gracious to others as well. What makes that so difficult for us to simply show kindness to people? We may not disagree. We may not agree, but we can still show kindness. Is it ego? Is it pride? That we just, when a chance to be gracious, we don't show. Now I'm not saying allow yourself to be run over and misused. but you can still show grace even to the people that you don't agree with. And that is a challenge for us. So being gracious to the people that hurt us, being gracious to the people that lied on us, being gracious to the people that did us wrong, being gracious to the people who criticize us and treat us poorly. Didn't say you have to bend over backwards and make a fool of yourself, but you can still be gracious and be kind, like the Lord has been kind to us. Christian maturity is demonstrated in how we deal with the people who've done the most wrong to us. That means if you drive by and they're on fire and there's a bucket of gas and a bucket of water, you choose water, not gas, Miss Hunt. You choose the water because you would want somebody to choose water for you. And there are people who have done you wrong, and because you didn't have the depth of relationship with them, it didn't even bother you. But we have to show compassion to all because God shows compassion to us. Not foolish compassion. And the grace we get is that God gives us a chance to get right with him before it's over for us. So grace. Now Proverbs 15, chapter 1. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1. A soft answer turneth away wrath. Our first response when we're angry often is not our best response, is it? I apologize to a boy today because yesterday he was late for every class, trying to sneak and wear something that wasn't in dress code. And then he got flipped and said something crazy to me, and I met him in his foolishness. Man, you don't know me? No, you don't know me. I can hit you in your head and retire tomorrow. And he looked, I'm in that. I said, because we've had this conversation all day. Since you got off the bus, I've talked to you 10 times a day. I ain't got no more grace for your foolishness today. And for you to tell me that you don't know me, I don't know who I'm dealing with, and boy, I am pleased. So I want you to look around the school. Who up here, if we got entangled, can save you from me? Because they all going to go the long way to get wherever we are. Yeah. That's it. They could walk out the room and see us right in front of the door. They're going to walk out the door. They're going to walk to the stadium, walk by the softball field, come back in the front of school, get some water, use the restroom, and then say, let's go get Mr. Andrews off that boy. I said, son, I apologize for how I said what I said to you. I said, but you have to understand, you live to provoke people. Not everybody has that self-control. I was like, because we got 3-4 people up here that you say something crazy to them, I'm going to be a character witness for them. But when you get angry, you often say the first thing that comes to your mind. And oftentimes, it does not make the situation better, it makes it worse. And we have to learn how to have a soft answer. Because we live in a generation, particularly of these folks who are under 30. They are part of the everybody got a trophy generation. So they don't handle disappointment well. They don't handle struggle well. They don't handle no well because, and so they always got a reply. They always want a response. They want an explanation. Whereas we understood what our parents said, no, it was no. And so we have to learn to use that soft answer that says, this is why, and go it on. But what happens is when we are engaged with one another and both of us are angry, neither one of us are trying to give a soft answer. We're trying to go, we want blood. But just give you some life advice. My daddy told me this, and it's true. It takes two fools to argue. When somebody walks up, they not going to know who the second fool is. They just going to see two fools argue. We have to learn not ever to be the second fool. Because some people live to provoke you. Some people live to say something curt to you. Because they want a response, and we are in the cell phone, post every thought that runs across my mind age. And so it's easy just to give a soft answer and move on because the wrong answer escalates situations. And you don't know how some people are going to respond to your harsh answer. So we have to learn to give that soft answer. Before you respond, say, man, I need a moment. Let me think. To just gather yourself, because if you say it right off the bat, I guarantee you it's going to cut who you're going to say it to. So any questions so far or comment? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I admire you for that, Mother Caldwell. I hadn't gotten there yet. I'm just honest with you. I can do it in some situations, but more often than not, when I feel that I'm being unnecessarily attacked. Now I defend her more than I do myself. I do, because I just think if that is my responsibility to part of those vows of protect. But I've learned, especially in these last 10 plus years of pastoring, because the first 12, the Lord kind of buffered me. Out in the woods, I was fine. I could go pastor, come back, go to work. But then when he began to merge where I lived with where I worked and where I pastored. That brought unnecessary foolishness. Because I still have the same routine now that I did prior to marriage. In that I get off work, I go home, cook, I'm going to the gym. That's it. So when people who are miserable in their own life begin to attack you for how you live yours, and I ain't do nothing to you, I'm gonna put the oil down and let you slide 2-3 times. But one of them times, I'm gonna let you slide into me so we can talk. So what did I do to you to make you lie on me? I told you about the lady in Ruston when I went to get my oil changed. I'm sitting there, and I got on the church T-shirt, Mother Powell. It says Liberty Hill Missionary Baptist Church. Got name at the bottom. And I'm just getting my oil changed, and she walks in and reads my shirt. And she says, "Oh, Liberty Hill." I said, "Yes, ma'am." Oh, she said, "That's where you go." I said, "Yes, ma'am. I'm there pretty much every Sunday." And so, and she begins to say, I heard about their pastor. Really? Tell me about him. I want to know. And she was like, yeah, he running women and spending the money, and he been single, so he don't think he got to. And she just kept talking. And I said, ma'am, do you know him? She said, no, but you know what they say about him. So you never met this man, and you told me all this stuff about him. She said, yeah, when you hear it, ma'am, I'm him. Huh? Said, the man whose name is on the bottom of the shirt, that's me. Now I need you to stop this lie before you go any further telling anybody. She was, huh? Yes, ma'am. That's me. But you were just comfortable repeating church gossip. I was like, one, have you been to Liberty Hill? Ain't nobody in there for me to date. And two, I said, all these ladies are older. They're older, widows. My son is in middle school. What am I going to do? I said, but nobody steals any money. I said, but you were comfortable saying that to me. I said, where do you go to church? She wouldn't say, because I knew her pastor. But that's how people, but the response, I could have been harsh in my response. Well, ma'am, this is, that's me. I don't think I do those kind of things. And so, but what happens is we have a tendency to give a harsh response and make situations worse instead of just speaking a kind word. Right? Then Proverbs 16. Verse 28 tells us that we are to avoid gossip. We are to avoid gossip. Now, I do understand that everybody in this room is a Black Baptist. And unfortunately, one thing that happens in our churches more than anything else is gossip. But one thing that could stop it is if you don't know it to be true, don't repeat it. But because we like to see each other suffer, or we like to, quote unquote, put others in their place, or remind them who they are, we will quickly spread gossip more than we will spread the gospel. Rumors and lies travel at 10 times the rate that the truth will ever. And if someone trusts you with an intimate detail of their life, you violate your friendship when you begin to repeat it to each other. One of the things that I've expressed to my wife, that when I talk to people in counseling sessions, or people come to me with specific things going on in their life, because of the nature that I go through, the only person that I can talk to about it is God. And that's what I do. You have a right to your personal privacy. And if we have discussed anything in my office, or we have talked about something that was personal to you, and you heard it, you had to tell somebody, because I don't. Because that would be a disservice for me, for you to come in and trust me with what you're going through, and we pray about it, and then I go and tell somebody. that is not the right thing to do. But even as a friend, if somebody comes to you and tells you something, you have to be careful and bear witness. Be careful and keep it to yourself. And if you know you can't, tell them, don't tell you. We all know our friend that can't keep their mouth closed. We do, right? We all got that one friend that no matter what, they the last person you tell anything. Because when you tell it to them, you know you might as well have put it on the news or Facebook or something, because they're going to tell everybody. You got two? Don't call no names, Steve. Don't call no names. But we all have those people that we know when we speak to them, they can't hold it. But the Bible is specific to us in this verse in telling us that a dishonest man spreads strife and a whisperer separates close friends. Gossip is divisive. Gossip causes divisions among people, because if you don't, especially when you go back and say, you know what so-and-so said, and most times you're not going to repeat what you said to prompt them to say that. And now division is happening. And I do realize that there are people within the context of the church who live to operate off divisions we talked about last week, because they use division to maintain what they view as their position. But intentionally causing division in the Lord's house, God is going to deal with you. And we use, for some reason, we use that tool of gossip, and it causes so many problems in the context of a congregation. Congregations have been destroyed, churches have separated, all because somebody was going back and forth spreading things. We have to learn how to be honest and not misuse our speech by being gossips and busybodies. You know what was that show? What was that, Rona Barrett back in the day? I'm really showing my age. Rona Barrett, she used to be a gossip columnist. She had one of the highest ranking shows and segments, and she would come on the Good Morning show on ABC, and they give her 10 minutes, and she'd tell you all of the Hollywood gossip. When you watch those housewives shows, they always end up fighting at the reunion show because of what somebody said, and it wasn't proven to be true, but here they are, these women supposed to be high class, but they throwing chairs and fighting each other over gossip. So if it can elicit that kind of response in the world, imagine what it does in the context of a congregation and causing problems. Because it takes on the fire that is in the tongue, and it spreads and destroys and divides. So if you don't know it to be true, you were not an eyewitness to it, let it stop with you. Because when you stop spreading it, they'll stop bringing it to you. And this is a personal thing. I'm always cautious of the they say people. Because 9 times out of 10, you are the they that said it. In other words, if that's what you think, say it with your chest. Put your name on it. Don't hide behind they say. So we have to be cautious about that. Then Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25. Ephesians 4 and 25. Christian speech tells the truth. Wherefore, putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor. Christians are called to be people of truth. That means avoiding lies, avoiding exaggeration, avoiding deception, avoiding false accusations, avoiding half-truths, because a half-truth is a whole lie. But truth must be combined with love. You can be honest with me, but do it in love. And oftentimes, we will choose the comfort of a familiar lie over a hard truth. Your life will change when you are honest with yourself. It's easier for me to look in your window and critique you than to stand in front of the mirror and be honest with myself. That's the literal mirror and the mirror of God's word. So it's easier for me to just stand there and go, well, Deacon Gibson and I do this, and this, and I don't know how he gonna make it there. How is he a deacon? He do all this, and this, but I'm failing to look at myself and be truthful. It's easier for me to go and lie, because the people we lie to the most are ourselves. I'm doing all right, and because we speak to ourselves by comparing ourselves based on what we think about others, but not what we truly know about ourselves. But I'm doing all right compared to, no, how are you really doing? Well, if God came back today and you had to stand before him, what would he say about you? And see, that's a conversation that we don't like to have with ourselves because we like to think that we are so good. Everybody in here has a thorn that they wrestle with. But when you are not honest with yourself, you hinder yourself from growing. My trainer told me this. He said, if you go to a gym to work out and the walls are not lined with mirrors, it's a setup. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, because the mirror will only show back to you what you put in front of it. He said, so you in there doing all this stuff like you Superman, look in the mirror every now and then. It'll show you exactly what you are. And that's the truth that a lot of us try to avoid and not deal with, is because we don't want to see ourselves honestly. When we go to the barbershop on Saturdays, I get a little jealous that Aiden gets a whole haircut. But you know why Aiden gets a whole haircut? Because when I was younger, I didn't take care of my body the way I should. I stressed over stuff that I shouldn't have been stressing over, did stuff that I shouldn't have been doing. So boom. It just grows, but it's a U up top. So I'm honest about that. It's nobody's fault but mine. You are not big boned. Everybody's bones are the same. Nobody made you do it. You made the decision. And when we're honest about some of the stuff we go through, it's not because somebody did something to you. You allowed something to happen to you. You saw all those red flags that said stop, but you permitted it to happen. So you accepted the pain. We have to learn to be honest with ourselves. Because if we're not, we're going to live a life that's a lie. That's why I told one of my friends, hey, man, you need to stop putting these AI pictures on social media. Because if something happened to you, we ain't going to be able to find you. Because you don't look nothing like none of these pictures. I said, what you got up top should be in the middle. And your hair ain't been curly since I've known you, so I don't know what. But we would rather live and deceive ourselves. So we have to learn to be truthful. In 1 Peter 3:15, our speech should be a witness for Christ. When we talk, people should know that we belong to Christ. We should speak with meekness and fear. That is what Peter tells us in 1 Peter 3:15. When we speak, we should speak in meekness and in fear because of who we belong to. People should be able to hear your language and know that you've given your life to Christ. Because there's certain things you don't say, certain things you don't participate in, certain language does not come out of your mouth. But when you conduct yourself to fit into the world, you blur and destroy your own witness. And the witness of our words in this generation is based on not only what we say, but what we post and what we share. Because not everything should come from our mouth. How we speak should be laced with love and uplifting, and people should be drawn to say, what brought about this change in you? That opens the door for you to witness for Christ. But when your language is just like theirs, and our default is, well, I'm just a man, but you're a man that gave your life to Christ. So you have a different access to power and being transformed. And if your mindset is still the same at 50 than it was at 30, your transformation has been delayed because it should show first in your speech, then in your actions, and then how you move each day. But oftentimes, we don't want to change our speech because we want to fit in. Our friends still cuss and gossip and do all of these things. So we don't want to seem like we're holy and then now, but it's not holy and now. You made a confession that you are now Christ-like, so live it. I used to be the world's worst. If I hit a bad shot on the golf course, before I accept my calling, Dick, I want to say that. I want to put that clarified. Oh, I would say some god-awful things to my golf ball. If I was that golf ball, I wouldn't have done the right thing either because of what. But what I learned is that had to change because when I stood in front of the church and said what God had called me to do, the change was not just changing what I did on Sundays, but changing how I lived each day. And so we have to learn that our words are our witness. So when you're talking to people and you are the one that's always bringing the bone or the gossip, or you are always the one that's speaking negative, or you are the one that's repeating what they said, or you are the one that has not shifted the language and shifted your mentality where you're not dropping profanity all the time, you need to assess your relationship with Christ so the change can happen. Because your words are your witness. People will listen to what you say, especially when it's validated by what you do. But if your words and your actions don't match, they're not going. It's going to be hard for them to follow you to do anything for Christ. Because you told me how great God is, and how much the Lord has changed you. But 5 minutes later, I just heard you cuss out everybody in the office. I just saw you came to me with some office gossip 2 minutes later. So we have to make sure that our language is a language that is lifted, laced with love, with wisdom, with truth, because it is a hallmark for what we are. Now, before you speak, test it by these questions. The first question is it true? Next, is it necessary? Because one thing about speech is you learn when to talk and when not to talk. Is it loving? Is it helpful? Does it honor Christ? True? Is it necessary? Is it loving? Is it helpful? Does it honor Christ? Our speech, before you open your mouth, run it through that filter to see where it is. Because sometimes people need encouragement. Sometimes people need the truth. Sometimes levity is the rule of the room. But run it through that filter to make sure that your speech honors Christ. Because oftentimes we talk without thinking and say things that are not helpful, not meaningful, not truthful, not kind nor compassionate. And they don't honor God. But the same thought that we put into what we wear, we have to put into what we say. Because our speech is the first part of our testimony that people are going to hear. When you tell them what God has done for you, when you speak to them about the goodness of God, when you speak to them of the depth of God's love, when you speak to them about grace, about mercy, about favor and kindness, and how there's nowhere you can go that God cannot reach down and help you to stand back up. When we speak and tell them that, make sure that our actions validate what we say. Because they're watching, they're listening, and we draw them in. They help me with my fishing analogy. The words hook them. The Bible is the line, and the testimony that we have and how we live before them reels them in. Is that right, Dick? I ain't been fishing, but I know I got the logistics down. But how people are listening to us, and you'll be amazed by what they can repeat about what you say. And let's make sure that what we say is worth them repeating. Give them some of the goodness of God. Speak to them in such a way that we can encourage them to do the right thing. And even when we correct, do it with love, so that we're steady building and edifying and leading them to glorify God. And are any questions or comments? Children, I know what your lesson is about, but you should share it with everybody else. Yes, ma'am. Miss MLK Wildcat. about the lesson? But then also, too, then they teach their children on how to don't be around so and so, don't do that. And you're like, how are you polluting children's minds because you had a falling out? This ain't the happy McCoy. You're not about to go to war. But that's the mindset that some of us have. Or they show they get low key disrespectful with their language. And oftentimes they're talking about you and you help them more than they help themselves. I guess we might be the last generation where when grown folks are talking, you left the room. But forgiveness is a key component of what we do in our living because how can you expect to be forgiven when you won't forgive? Because you got this list of people. One of my favorite episodes of Big Bang Theory is when Sheldon Cooper he had a 3x5 floppy disk of all of his mortal enemies that he's accumulated over his life. And here is this man, he's grown into his 30s, and he's got a list of mortal enemies of people he does not like for these various reasons he doesn't talk to. And some of us are just like that. We ain't got a list on a CD or a computer, but we got a list in our mind of folks on food with them, but have no valid reason as to why. Just some we heard or some that somebody came back and told us what they said. And a conversation will fix a lot of stuff that we got to have grudges with. But we don't want to have a conversation because Jackson made a very good point. We don't want to look weak or soft in front of people. But it takes strength to confront somebody about what they said about, hey, let's fix this. The easy thing to do is just let it slide. But oftentimes we miss out on valuable relationships, valuable experiences, and connections because pride makes us say, I'm not going to go talk to nobody else. But when were little kids, we could fight at 2 o'clock and share an ice cream cone at 2:30. We became adults. We fall out Monday, and we might not speak to each other for 20 years. We could have grew up sitting right here on this pew and have an argument. Now one of us is sitting over there by that door, and the other one is sitting over there by that window, and we make sure that we don't never cross paths inside the same church. Because if you love God, it shows in how your obedience to what He said. He said forgive. Because love is an action word. It's not an emotion. I don't care what Hallmark and the Hallmark Channel tells you. It is an action word. You have to love. It's a command. So, yeah, children want to add something? Hey, Sugar Mom. See all my Richwood people over there? You go to Martin Luther King Jr. now, man? No, I'm just picking at you. Proud of all our kids. Like I told you on Sunday, I've been talking to their principals and how they've adjusted and got into school, and they're doing well. Just keep encouraging them. And Casey has not been to the office in a year plus, so we leave Casey alone. He hadn't even had to go get a tardy yet, so he's doing all right. But nothing else. Sunday, Family Day. It's dress how the Lord leads you. Just remember, it's the church, not the nightclub. Don't let nobody bully you even wearing nothing. Hey, Pastor White. I told my brother, I said, if nothing else, your sister-in-law got prayed for Sunday. He's like, what? I was like, you can call her name before the Lord on the